Good morning, Jai Swaminarayan students. Today we are start INS session 5. Previously we are learned a digital signature in which we are discussing various part of digital signatures, how it's used and the practical applications. Now today we are starting the requirements of hash functions. वी आर ऑलरेडी लर्न लास्ट सेशन में हमने पढ़ा था कि हैश फंक्शन क्या है, उसके यूज़ क्या है. इट इज़ यूज़फुल फॉर इंफॉर्मेशन सिक्योरिटी एप्लीकेशन. Today we discuss the requirements for hash function, but before that you must aware with hash function basic structures and how it's work. Now let's start with hash functions. Hash functions are extremely useful and appear in almost all information security applications. A hash function is a mathematical function. वो मैथमेटिकल algorithms and calculations और equations पे डिपेंड है. that converts a numerical input value, that means integer values, into another compressed numerical value. The input to the hash function is of arbitrary length, but आउटपुट इज़ ऑलवेज ऑफ फिक्स लेंथ. यहाँ पे हम क्या देख रहे हैं, हैश फंक्शन में जो आउटपुट है वो ऑलवेज आपको फिक्स लेंथ वैल्यूज़ में मिलेगा. नाउ वैल्यूज़ रिटर्न बाय हैश फंक्शन आर कॉल्ड एज अ मैसेज डाइजेस्ट. सिंपली हम उसे हैश वैल्यू भी बोल सकते हैं. आई रिपीट, डेफिनेशन ऑफ मैसेज डाइजेस्ट GTU एग्ज़ाम में काफ़ी बार मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है, वो पूछा गया है. तो हमें क्या लिखना है, अ हैश फंक्शन इज़ अ मैथमेटिकल फंक्शन दैट कन्वर्ट अ न्यूमेरिकल इनपुट वैल्यू इनटू another compressed numerical value. The input to the hash function is arbitrary value, but output is always of fixed length. Values written by hash function are called as a message digest. In hash functions, a message of arbitrary length is converted into hash functions and you get as an output hash value in fixed length. Got it? The features of hash functions. Typical features of hash functions are fixed length output. फिक्स लेंथ आउटपुट को आप हैश वैल्यू बोल सकते हैं. हैश फंक्शन क्या काम कर रहा है यहाँ पे, कन्वर्ट डेटा ऑफ आर्बिट्ररी लेंथ टू फिक्स लेंथ. दिस प्रोसेस इज ऑफन रिफर टू एज हैशिंग द डेटा. प्रोसेस को हम क्या बोल सकते हैं, द एंटायर प्रोसेस इज हैशिंग the data. In general, the hash is much smaller than the input data. In general, the hash is much smaller than the input data. Hence, hash function are sometimes called compression function. Since a hash is a smaller representation of a larger data, it is also referred to as a digest. Hash function with n-bit output is referred to as an n-bit hash function. n-bit hash function किसे कहते हैं, hash function with n-bit output is referred to as an n-bit hash function. Popular hash function generate a value between 160 and 512 bits, 512 bits. Efficiency of operation. Which operation? Here we are performing hashing the data by using hash function. इसकी efficiency क्या है? Generally for any hash function h with input x, computation of hx is a fast operation. ये क्या है, उसकी efficiency है. Computationally, hash function are much faster than symmetric encryption. Remember, most important thing, computationally hash function are much faster than symmetric encryption. Few properties of hash functions. In order to be an effective cryptographic tool, the hash function is desired to possess the following properties: for memory, pre-image resistance, second pre-image resistance, collision resistance. ये 3 क्या है? प्रॉपर्टी ऑफ हैश फंक्शन. प्री इमेज रेजिस्टेंस में क्या होता है? दिस प्रॉपर्टी मीन्स दैट इट शुड बी कंप्यूटेशनली हार्ड टू रिवर्स अ हैश फंक्शन. In other words, if a hash function h produces a hash value z, then it should be difficult process to find any input value x that hashes to z. हमने एज्यूम किया है यहाँ पे कि इन हैश फंक्शन जो h प्रोड्यूस होता है जो हैश वैल्यू z के लिए, then it should be difficult process to find any input value x that hashes to z. This property protects against an attacker who only has a hash value and is trying to find the input. The pre-image resistance की प्रॉपर्टी ये है. सेकंड क्या प्रॉपर्टी है यहाँ पे? pre-image resistance, but it's called a second pre-image resistance. This property is given an input and its hash, it should be hard to find a different input with the same hash. In other words, if a hash function h for an input x produces hash value, then it should be difficult to find any other input value. This property of hash function protects against an attacker who has an input value and its hash and want to substitute different value as a legitimate value in place of original input value. Now हमने देखा सेकंड प्रॉपर्टी ऑफ प्री इमेज रेजिस्टेंट. थर्ड प्रॉपर्टी क्या है? कोलिजन रेजिस्टेंस. इस प्रॉपर्टी में क्या पढ़ना है हमें? it should be hard to find two different input of any length. This property means it should be hard to find two different input of any length that result in same hash. This property also referred to as collision free hash function. जो GTU एग्ज़ाम में कोलिजन फ्री हैश फंक्शन की डेफिनेशन पूछी जा रही है और अभी पूछ सकते हैं, तो हमें क्या है मेमोराइज करना है. The property of collision resistance, it means be hard to find two different inputs of any length that result in the same hash. This property is also referred to as collision free hash function. In another word, for a hash function h, it is hard to find any two different input x and y, such as hx is equal to hy. Since hash function is compressing function with, you already remember, fixed hash length. यहाँ पे हम इनपुट में फिक्स्ड हैश लेंथ यूज़ कर रहे हैं. इट इज़ इम्पॉसिबल फॉर अ हैश फंक्शन नॉट टू हैव कोलिजन. दिस प्रॉपर्टी ऑफ कोलिजन फ्री ओनली कन्फर्म दैट this collision should be hard to find. This property make it very difficult for an attacker to find two input value with the same hash. Also, if a hash function is a collision resistant, then it is second pre-image resistance. कोलिजन रेजिस्टेंस 4 to 5 मार्क शॉर्ट नोट अगर आपको पूछी जा सकती है जीटीयू में, तो आप इतने पॉइंट्स मेंशन कर सकते हैं. फर्स्ट, डेफिनेशन ऑफ कोलिजन फ्री हैश फंक्शंस, देन टू डिफरेंट इनपुट एक्स वाई, और हमें क्या कंपेयर करना है, वैल्यू ऑफ एक्स एंड वाई इन टर्म्स ऑफ हैश. सिंस थर्ड पॉइंट, compressing function with fixed hash length, it is impossible to hash function not have collision. Property of collision free, क्या कर रहे हैं, only confirm that this collision should be hard to find. This property make it very difficult for an attacker to find two input value with same hash. और at last में क्या लिखना है, if a hash function is collision resistant, that it is second pre-image resistance. अभी हम क्या देख रहे हैं नेक्स्ट टॉपिक में, डिज़ाइन ऑफ हैश फंक्शंस. दिस इज़ द बेसिक इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ हैश फंक्शन. I already described in previous session, but this is a part of revision because the hash function is a most important point in terms of knowledge and GTU examination as well. So, design of hash algorithm, in which at the heart of hashing is a mathematical function that operate on two fixed size block of data to create a hash code. This hash function forms the part of the hashing algorithm. The size of each data block varies depending on the algorithm. Typically, the block size are from 128 bit to 512 bits. The demonstration in which we are considered as an input the two data block, then we need to apply a mathematical hash function and you get output as a hash value. Hashing algorithm में क्या होता है, it's involve a round of hash function like a block cipher. Each round take an input of fixed size, typical a combination of most recent message block and the output of the last round. This process is repeated for as many rounds as are required to hash the entire message. Schematic of hashing algorithm is depicted in illustration. Since the hash value of first message block become an input to the second hash operation, output of which alter the result of third operation and so on. This effect is known as avalanche effect of hashing. Now you are aware with new definition. Is a part of hash functions is avalanche effect. Avalanche effect क्या है, since the hash value of first message block become an input to the second hash operation. The first process, first round जो block data block पे हमने process करके जो output मिला है, वो second hash operation में as a input consider होगा. Then output of which alters the result of the third operation and so on. This effect is known as avalanche effect of hashing. Now avalanche effect result क्या होगा, उसका result substantially different hash value for two messages that differ by even a single bit of data. Understand the difference between hash function and algorithm correctly. The hash function generates a hash code by operating on two blocks of fixed length binary data. Hashing algorithm is a process for using the hash function. It specifies how the message will be broken up and how the result from previous message block are chained together. Now we are seeing the few requirements. First requirement is can be applied to any size message. Second, produce a fixed length output. Third is easy to compute. H means has function, has value. It's is equal to H under bracket M. That means M for any size message. For any message M. For step is given H is infeasible to find the value of X, and same in step 5 given X is infeasible to find Y. X and Y both are considered as an input value to process a hash function, and what become an output is a hash value. In sixth step, in is feasible to find any xy. For example, h under bracket y is equal to hx. Simple hash function are several proposals for simple function. It is based on XOR of message blocks, which is used to divide the message into equal size block. It performs XOR operation block by block. Finally, you get output is the hash. It is not very secure. Simple hash function is not very secure. Need a stronger cryptographic function. You need to use a stronger cryptographic function. Security of hash function and max. But before we discussed a security of hash function and max, we need to must aware about popular hash function. Most popular hash functions is message digest. MD5 was most popular and widely used hash function for quite some years. The MD family comprises of hash function MD2, MD4, MD5 and MD6. MD means message digest. It was adopted as Internet Standard RFC 1321. It is 128-bit hash function. MD5 digest have been widely used in the software world to provide assurance about integrity of transferred file. For example, file server often provide a pre-computed MD5 checksum for the files so that a user can compare the checksum of the downloaded file to. In 2004, collisions were found in MD5. An analytical attack was reported to be successful only in an hour by using computer cluster. This collision attack resulted in compromised MD5 and hence it is no longer recommended for use. That's why a hash function is not secure. Second is SHA, secure hash function. We are seen later. RIPEMD is a asynchronous of race integrity primitives evolution message digest. This is a hash function was designed by open research community and generally known as family of European hash function. Then a whirlpool is a 512-bit hash function is a derived from modified version of Advanced Encryption Standard AES. Then few application of hash functions. There are two direct application of hash function based on its cryptographic properties. First, we need to use for password storage and data integrity check. Now we are start the security of hash function and max. It is mostly attack on hash function and mac into two categories. First is a brute force attack and second is a crypto analysis. Brute force attack, you are heard many time in this word, is called a brute force attack. It is a part of cryptography and one kind of cryptoanalytic method. It is used for just identify the attack is consist of an attacker submitting many passwords with hope of eventually guessing correctly. The attacker systematically checks all possible passwords and passphrases until the correct one is found. Alternatively, an attacker can attempt to guess the key, which is typically created from password using a key derivation function. This is known as an executive key search. Now, a brute force attack is a cryptoanalytic attack that can use to attempt to decrypt any encrypted data, except for data encryption in an information theoretically secure manner. This is just a part of security of hash function and max. We need to introduce in this session the attack was on hash function and mac into two categories, brute force attack and cryptanalysis. We are learn more in depth in next session. Thank you. Jai Swaminarayan.